Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadin alayhi afdalus salati wa atammu taslim. I ask Allah that He makes that which we learn here of benefit to us, and He gives us the tawfiq to understand and comprehend and act upon that which is of benefit for us. With regards to today's talk, then inshallah we're going to be continuing with the topic that we started, the heart therapy. And specifically we mentioned we're going to be taking those ibadat al-qalbiyah, those acts of worship that our hearts perform. Now, I've given you this printout, and this is going to be today's talk. And for those following online, then inshallah the link to the PDF is going to be sent out on the Masjid's Facebook page. Now, today's topic is sincerity, as was announced. Now, it's important we understand that sincerity, it is the most greatest act of worship our hearts can perform. And there's many issues pertaining to al-ikhlas. So it's not going to be possible for us to take everything that we'd like to take between Maghrib and Isha here today. However, there are certain objectives. There are certain objectives that I want us all, with Allah's aid and permission, to walk away with after this class. And that is what this printout is. Who's going to read out the first point? Amr, Jazakallah for. Raise your voice, sir. Okay, so the first objective of our study here today is for us to understand the importance of sincerity and the lofty status it has with Allah. What does this mean? This means that any act of worship that we perform, we have to ask ourselves, what does this ibadah mean to Allah? Why is this act of worship important? What are its virtues and its importance in our religion? How does this help strengthen and develop my relationship with Allah? For any act of worship. Who's going to read number 2? Osama.
Once the believer has sound knowledge where he has understood and contextualized the importance of sincerity in his life, then he must not only act upon making sincerity a pivotal role in his life, but he has to struggle and strive the utmost struggle to bring sincerity into fruition in every aspect of his life. Okay, so point number 2 is, once the believer has sound knowledge where he has understood and contextualized the importance of sincerity in his life, then he must not only act upon making sincerity a pivotal role in his life, but he has to struggle and strive, the utmost struggle, to bring sincerity into fruition in every aspect of his life. What does this mean? This means it is not sufficient. Point number 1 is not sufficient for us just to know the virtues of the act of worship. But the whole purpose of us to come and seek knowledge and understand is for us to act upon this knowledge. And then once we start acting upon that, it cannot be subjective action. We have to be acting upon our ikhlas and our sincerity throughout the day and throughout the night. And then once we get to that stage, we have to protect our relationship with Allah. We have to protect our relationship with Allah from the plots of the shaitan and the tricks of the shaitan. Like we mentioned last week, he will do whatever it takes for him to destroy your relationship with your Lord. So it's not sufficient just to know about the virtues of al-ikhlas. And even acting upon it is not sufficient. But bringing it into every aspect of your life and preserving it and defending it against the plots of the shaitan. Is that clear, my brothers? Yes? No? The third point is the believer must know certain issues pertaining to insincerity and its consequences. And this is clear. The fourth point is the believer must exhaust every avenue when it comes to protecting his sincerity. And this is what we just mentioned. The fifth point is referring to traditional Muslim scholarship in all affairs of our religion, especially in our relationship with Allah. This point here basically means we have to know the perspective of the Prophet ﷺ in every aspect of our religion. What was the Prophet's outlook on this ibadah? What was his attitude towards this ibadah? How did he get closer to Allah through this ibadah? How often did he act upon this? How did he teach this to the Sahaba?
How did the Sahaba receive this knowledge? How did they take it down to the next generations? And this is a principle, a holistic principle in every issue of our religion. In every issue of our religion. So today we're taking ikhlas, so this is what we're going to be dealing with. The sixth objective of today's study is for the believer to know some of the fruits of sincerity in this life and the next. And this is what we're going to be taking. For us to achieve these 6 objectives, if you turn the sheet over, then I've broken down this presentation into 8 topics of discussion. Who's going to read them through for us? Our brother Ibrahim. La? The other Ibrahim. Fadl. The first one is the definition. Tayyib. Read through them. Hey. Number 2, importance of sincerity. The intention and its effect on actions. Number 4 is the fruits of al-ikhlas. Number 5 is attributes of the sincere. Number 6 is examples of examples of ikhlas from the lives of the Salaf. Number 7, some rulings pertaining to al-ikhlas. Tayyib. Practical tips to help us be sincere. Okay. Keep this paper in front of you and it'll help you follow the talk. The first thing we mentioned was the definition. What do we mean by sincerity and al-ikhlas? When we speak about al-ikhlas and sincerity, what we're speaking about is actively developing and strengthening our relationship with our Lord by having the intention that every act of worship that we do is done for Allah and Allah alone. Whether it's salah, whatever it may be, any ibadah that you do this ibadah for Allah's sake. You do not do it so you are praised, or it said that you are righteous or you are pious, or so people can see you, or any other worldly means. But rather, the reason why we perform this act of worship is for the sake of Allah, for Allah's acceptance, for Allah's pleasure, for Allah's mercy. And when we abstain from something that Allah wants us to stay away from, we also abstain from this for the sake of Allah. If there is something that earns Allah's anger and His punishment and removes His blessings, then we stay away from this with the intention that I'm doing this for Allah's sake. So when it comes to understanding the niyyah and the ikhlas, then a key word is your intention, the niyyah. And that is because when you intend to do this worship for Allah, then this is what ikhlas is. And when you intend to do this ibadah for other than Allah, then this is what insincerity is. This is what riyā is. Is that clear? So the first point is clear. Okay, who's going to explain it for us? The first point was what the definition of al-ikhlas. Who's going to help us understand what ikhlas is? Amr, jazakallah khair. Yeah, we have to understand every ibadah that we do, the reason why we do this is to develop our relationship with Allah. And this, my brothers, is the most important relationship you have in your life. And from this stems every other relationship. The relationship we have with our parents, our wives, with our children, all of that stems from our relationship with Allah. We are righteous and kind and pious to these different people in our lives for the sake of Allah. Is that clear? The next topic, what's the next topic, Amr? The importance of sincerity. Tayyib. The first point that I bring to your attention when it comes to understanding the importance of sincerity is that sincerity is the greatest act of worship our hearts can perform. Now, I'm not going to get into the hearts because we discussed this last week. But it's important for us to understand the greatest act of worship our heart can perform is sincerity. The second point that I bring to your attention that helped us understand the importance of sincerity is that there is no differing. For any deed of ours to be accepted by Allah, it has to meet two conditions. That first condition is it has to be done sincerely for Allah's sake. And that second condition is that it has to be done in accordance with the Prophet's way. And we understand this from the ayah where Allah says in Surah Mulk, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ أَمَلًا. It is Allah who has created the concept of life and death for you to show Him who is the best in action. Allah does not say the one who has most action, but He says the one who is best in action. And the early scholars like Fudail ibn Iyad and others, when they explain what ahsanu amala here means, they said it is speaking about that which is done sincerely for Allah's sake and that which is done in accordance with the Prophet's sunnah, showing us the importance of referring back to the sunnah in every aspect of our life. Because from Allah's rights upon us is that He is worshipped how He wants to be worshipped. This is from His rights upon us, and we only understand this through the Qur'an and through the Sunnah, through formal revelation. So we cannot come now and start giving our own opinions where they are not, where is not their place for them, how Allah should be worshipped. La, this is from Allah's rights that He is the one who legislates and decrees how we worship. The third point that I bring to your attention that helps us understand the importance of sincerity is that sincerity has the ability to make a small deed, that which we conceive or may perceive to be small, it gives it the ability to have a major reward, the size of a mountain. And the opposite holds true also. The lack of sincerity has the ability to make a massive deed have no reward whatsoever. And sometimes it can even take us to the fire of hell. May Allah protect us all. Where do we understand this from? How does sincerity have the ability, how do we know sincerity has the ability to make a small deed bring such a big reward? This is understood. This is understood from two hadith. The first one is that where the Prophet ﷺ said there was a woman that had fallen into prostitution, and she's walking past and she sees a dog starving to death, and she saves its life. She gives it water. The Prophet ﷺ said because of this deed Allah forgave her for her previous sins and she went to Jannah. The second hadith is that person who comes Yawm al-Qiyamah and he has 99 scrolls of bad deeds. 99 scrolls. And his good deeds is just one card which says La ilaha illallah on there. And he thinks that the card is going to be outweighed by the 99 scrolls. And the opposite happens. In explaining these ahadith, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah be pleased with him, he mentions the reason why these deeds seem so small, but with Allah they were so great that He forgave their previous sins, was because they did it with sincerity. So sincerity, my brothers, has the ability to make a small deed have a massive reward. And like I said, the opposite also holds true. If something is supposed to be for Allah and we give that to other than Allah, then this doesn't only remove the reward, but it can also take us to the fire of hell. And we understand this from the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ told us the three types of people who are going to enter the fire of hell first. He said the first person is going to be who Allah blessed with Islamic knowledge, a scholar. And it's going to be said to him, what did you do with the blessing I gave you? What did you do with the blessing I gave you? And he's going to reply, I served your deen. And Allah is going to reply, you have lied. But rather, but rather what you did with this knowledge was you taught it so people can say you are righteous and you are pious and you are a learned man. And it was said, and you will be dragged to the fire of hell. Allah protect us all. You will be dragged to the fire of hell. The second person that the Prophet mentioned in this hadith is the person that is generous and he gives a lot in charity. And the same thing happens to him. What did you do with this blessing I gave you? And he's going to say, I was generous in your cause. Allah's going to say, no, you have lied. You gave so it may be said you were generous, and it was said you have had your reward. And he's dragged to the fire of hell. And the third person is the one who was a martyr. Allah's going to ask him, what did you do with the blessings that I gave you? And he says, I fought in your cause. He's going to say, no, you have lied. You did this so it could be said you were brave, and it was said, and you'll be dragged to the fire of hell. May Allah protect us all. The point here is, sincerity has the ability to make a small deed bring a vast reward. And it has the ability to make a good deed remove all its reward, showing us the importance of having our intentions correct, and how we have to constantly work to develop and strengthen our relationship with Allah, where we are working just to please Him and earn His acceptance and earn His rewards. The fourth point that I bring to your attention that helps us understand the importance of sincerity is that sincerity is one of the fortresses of this dunya that Allah has blessed us with. That Allah has blessed us with to protect us from the shaitan. As Allah quotes in Surah Sad the shaitan as saying, قَالَ فَبِإِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا إِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Where the shaitan says, and I swear by your glory, I will lead every single one of your slaves astray, except for those who are chosen from among your slaves. What are they chosen with? The first thing they're chosen with is sincerity. So in this dunya, when we feel like the shaitan is getting on top of us and things are becoming difficult for us to practice our religion, whatever it may be, turn to Allah and strengthen your relationship with Him and worship Him sincerely, and you will see victory. And you will see victory. The fifth point that I bring to your attention that helps us understand the importance of sincerity is that the companions would advise one another with sincerity. SubhanAllah, there's one of the letters you find of Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, where he writes a letter to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And he writes this letter to advise him. And in this letter he says, whoever works sincerely for Allah, then surely Allah will suffice him when it comes to the harm of the people. Whoever works sincerely for Allah, that which is important to you is your relationship with Allah. Then the harms of people that are around you, Allah is going to suffice you. Allah is going to suffice you. And you find that this was the tradition of the early scholars, that they would always start off their books with the one hadith. What is that hadith, Muhsin? The hadith which deals with the intention. The hadith which deals with the intentions. And we're going to be taking that in today's talk further on, inshallah. The sixth thing that helps us understand the importance of sincerity is that through knowing sincerity and comprehending its virtues and its importance, then this is from the greatest ways to become sincere. When you know that Allah loves this deed so much that He has given it so many virtues and rewards in this dunya and the next, this is the greatest way that will help you become sincere. The seventh point that I bring to your attention that helps us understand the importance of sincerity in our religion is that there are certain deeds. For Allah helps us understand the importance of sincerity by giving certain deeds great virtue when they are done sincerely. Some examples of this is the person who says La ilaha illallah sincerely. The Prophet ﷺ said, the gates of paradise are wide open for this person. SubhanAllah, not the person that just says it, but he says it sincerely, comprehending its importance. Also, another example of this is the person who fasts. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts sincerely for Allah's sake, then Allah is going to remove him from the fire of hell for 70 years. And also the person who gives sadaqah, the person who gives charity for the sake of Allah sincerely, where the Prophet ﷺ said, there are 7 types of people. There are 7 types of people that Allah will give shade to Yawm al-Qiyamah, on that day where there is no shade except for His shade. And people will sweat in accordance to their sins. And He will give that shade to the 7 categories of people. From them was the person who gives in charity, that his right hand does not know what his left hand was giving. What does that mean? That he gave it in secret without anybody knowing, in complete sincerity. In fact, if you look at the 7 categories of people, then all the common denominator that gathers them all together under that shade is that they worked sincerely for Allah's sake. And this is the exercise for us now. I'm going to give you the 7 categories of people, and I want you to explain to me how they are working, or they were working sincerely. So the first one is the just ruler. The just ruler. How was the just ruler working sincerely? Has everybody understood the question? Yes? No? My brother, have you understood the question?
Yes. Taking care of his
Say that again? Yeah, he was just, but how do we understand his sincerity? What has this got to do with sincerity? Excellent. There is nobody above him. There is nobody in this dunya above him that can punish him if he does whatever he wants. But he behaves in a just manner, gives everybody their rights. Why does he do so? For the sake of Allah. Because in this dunya there is nothing preventing him from doing so. But he does it for the sake of Allah, like sincerity. The second person is the youth who is raised in the obedience of Allah. This one's straightforward. Muhsin. Because at a very young age, he has tasted the sweetness of Iman. And he has understood the most important relationship in this dunya is our relationship with Allah. So he works sincerely to constantly preserve and strengthen and build on that relationship. The third person is the person whose heart is connected to the Masjid. This is also similar because his heart is connected to the Masjid, and that Masjid is a place that was built exclusively for the worship of Allah, to establish the ibadah of Allah. The fourth person, or the fourth tier, the categories of people, the Prophet said, 2 people that love each other for Allah's sake, where they gather and they depart for the sake of Allah. Where's the sincerity here? Umar, where's the sincerity, my brother? Amr. What's the premise of their relationship? Are they gathering for business or just to socialize? They are gathering for the sake of Allah. So their premise of their relationship is the love and ibadah of Allah sincerely. The fifth one, Prophet said, is that person who has the ability to commit zina, and at the last minute he refuses, or they refuse and they change their mind. Where's the sincerity here? It's their knowledge and their fear of Allah that prevents them. Again, their sincerity. The only thing preventing them is not anything in this dunya, it's the sincerity. The sixth one is the person who gives in charity, and we spoke about that. The seventh one is the person who is alone and he remembers Allah and he cries. Where's the sincerity here? My brother. What's your name? Okay, where's the sincerity in this? Out of when he is alone, he's strengthening his relationship with Allah, and it is that what causes him to cry. He doesn't have to worry about the people around him so they can say he's righteous or he's pious. SubhanAllah, you find that when you read the books of the scholars of the past, you would find some of the Imams of the Salaf, they would cry all their lives out of the fear of Allah when they were alone. And their wives would not even know. The most closest people to them would not even know. This is what they would do to preserve their deeds. When you look at the explanation of this hadith in the different books of hadith, one of the benefits that I thought was appropriate to mention here is that the scholars have mentioned from this hadith we learn that every single slave has to have one act of worship that he does for Allah and nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about this. He does it for Allah and Allah alone. Family, friends, nobody. For him to practice that ikhlas. So before we finish today's class, think and ponder about what act of worship we can introduce into our lives that nobody is going to know about, but it's going to be done between us and Allah. And everybody is different in this regards. It could be helping your neighbor, giving something in charity on a regular basis. I'm not just saying do it once. It could be weekly, monthly, or even daily. Something that we do that has a positive effect upon your iman and your relationship with Allah, and introduce that into your life before you leave today's class. Is that clear, brothers? Yes? No? The third topic, if you look at the sheet, the third topic of discussion is what's your name, brother? Abul Bashar. Can you read the third topic for us, please? No, that's the objectives, the other side of the sheet, where it says topics of discussion, number 3. The intention and its effect on our actions. Now we have to understand, from Allah's blessings upon us and from His immense mercy upon us, is that He has given us the blessing of turning our normal acts that we do, that which is natural to us and that which is habitual to us, we can turn this with the right intention to great acts of worship. Let me give you some examples. The first one is sleeping. There are 2 people that go to sleep. One person just sleeps without any niyyah of anything, without any intention. The second person goes to sleep and his intention is to wake up for Qiyamul Layl. None of them wake up. They both sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. None of them wake up. The Prophet ﷺ said about the second one that he gets the reward of praying the entire night. He gets the reward of praying the entire night. And the sleep that he had was a blessing and a gift from Allah to him. SubhanAllah, something that we do naturally, every single one of us sleeps. But if you have the right intention, you get rewarded for your sleep. Second example I bring to your attention is that of going to work. Every single one of us works and requests the rizq of Allah. There's two people that go to work. They do the exact same job, they work together. One is just working naturally. The second person is working with the intention of securing financial stability for himself and for his family. Because you find in the times of stability is when Islam spreads. As we learn from the Sulh of Al-Hudaybiyah, when there was stability, that's when Islam spreads. So for the young brothers among us who go home and they're new to the da'wah and to the deen and to the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and they start debating and getting into arguments, Islam does not spread like that. It has never spread like that. But rather Islam spreads in a time of peace and stability and tranquility. The point here is the person, back to the point, the person who goes to work with the intention, I am securing financial stability for myself and for my wife and for my children. The Prophet ﷺ said about this person in Sahih Muslim, he mentioned the different types of causes we can give charity to. At the end of the hadith, he says the greatest form of charity is the one who spends upon his family. So the person who goes to work with the intention, I'm financially securing the situation at home, he gets the reward of participating in the greatest form of charity. Subhanallah. Showing us the mercy of Allah upon us. Showing us the immense mercy and blessings of Allah upon us. So what is the distinguishing factor between the two people? The person that slept with the intention and without the intention. What's the distinguishing factor between the two? Abdul Hay. It was the niyyah that they had. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Every action is judged by your intention. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. And every person will have that which he intended. What does this hadith mean? This hadith has two sentences. The first one, your actions are judged by your intentions. This means that if this deed is not done for Allah sincerely, there is no reward for that. If you get up to pray and you are praying just for somebody to see that you are righteous or you are pious at home, for example, Allah is not going to reward you for that because it was not for His sake. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. The second sentence, every person will have that which he intended, meaning that you can turn your normal, natural things that you do and even your habits into amazing acts of worship if your intention is right. This is why some of the scholars of the past would say that sincerity causes the smallest deeds to become the largest. And others would say the smallest of deeds can bring the greatest of rewards. The next topic of discussion. My brother, what's your name? Abdul Khalik. Can you read the fourth topic of discussion, please? The fruits of al-ikhlas. The first fruit that I bring to your attention is that earning the aid and pleasure of Allah. Like we mentioned last week, the most important purpose of our life is to earn the aid and pleasure of Allah. And when we work sincerely for Allah, then this is where Allah's aid and pleasure lies. In the Prophet's life, there was 2 times where he could have had anything he wanted from this dunya. Anything he wanted. What are these 2 times? Question for you, brothers. Muhsin. What did the Quraysh say? What was his reply? Just no? Excellent. The first time was at the beginning of Islam, where the Quraysh came to him and they said, if you stop your message, we will give you whatever you like. If you want leadership and sovereignty, we will make you our leader. If you want wealth, we will give you whatever you like. Whatever it is in this dunya, we will give that to you. The Prophet ﷺ responded and he said, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I will never stop my da'wah. And you find he was true and he was sincere. And because he was true and he was sincere, he was wise in his dealings. He didn't cause unnecessary confrontation the way some of us do with our families inappropriately. And look at the end of his life, how Islam spread, how he came back and Mecca was his. The second time, when was the second time the Prophet ﷺ could have anything he wanted in this dunya? Anything. Amr. Abdul Hay. Say that again. No, I mean the opportunity was there for him. He didn't have to make a special dua. The dunya was there for him, in front of him. And all he had to say was, give me this, and it was there for him. At the end of his life, after Fathul Mecca, Islam was spreading. And Umar walks into his house, and he sees him lying upon the date palm tree, and it's scarring his back, and Umar starts to cry. That famous hadith that we all know. And Umar says, why do you live like this? And the Prophet ﷺ said, hey, at that time you could have asked for anything you wanted from this dunya. Because Islam at that time had become a superpower, where it had taken over the Arabian Peninsula. And many of the tribes are waiting to see what was going to happen with Mecca, the main city at that time. If he takes that, then we're going to accept Islam. Then we know that this is a true message. But if he dies before that, or they're not able to get Mecca back, it shows that it's not a successful mission. So after Fathul Mecca, the Prophet could have had anything he wanted, from wealth to houses to women, whatever you think of. And it shows you what a shallow understanding that some people have, that they believe the Prophet was just here to attain the dunya. And this is the greatest argument they have about the Prophet's life. He wanted the dunya. Subhanallah. And what's even more saddening is that you find some Muslims are affected by this. They think that yes, maybe this is true, maybe they do have a leg to stand on. If you had the ability to read the most basic books about the Prophet's life, you'll know that this is complete falsehood. The point here is, these two stages in the Prophet's life, at the beginning of Islam and at the end of Islam, he could have had whatever he wanted from this dunya. Whatever he wanted. But he refused that out of sincerity for his Lord. And you see how he was aided and how victory came to him. So the point here is that if you stand for the truth sincerely, Allah is going to give you success. How does this apply to our lives today? How does this apply to our lives today? I bring you one example that is predominant in some communities. And that is, you find sometimes a brother is married and his wife is being oppressed by his mother. Everybody with me? His wife is being wronged by his own mother. And he will not work sincerely for Allah and stop that oppression. But he will pretend nothing's happening. And he will stay quiet. When we learn about the Prophet's sincerity and what it meant to him, these are not just stories to make us feel happy. These are ways for you to attain Jannah, my brothers. These are ways for you to attain Jannah, for you to seek guidance from the Prophet's life. Think about how we can practically strengthen our relationship with Allah by working sincerely and wisely for the truth. And you find that many people are affected by this way where they are not interested in standing up for the truth. And sometimes it's the opposite. It could be the wife oppressing his mother, mathalan. But the point here is, when you see oppression and you are the one that is responsible, the wife, for an example, you are the one responsible over her. You are her husband. It is your responsibility, not somebody else's. Your responsibility. It is your job to work sincerely to remove that problem in a wise and proper way. The second fruit of al-ikhlas, the second fruit of ikhlas is having your good deeds accepted. Like I mentioned before, is one of the conditions to have our deeds accepted is to work sincerely for Allah's sake. And we learn this from the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah la yaqbalu min al-amali illa ma kana lahu khalisan." Allah does not accept the deed unless it is done for His sake sincerely. The third fruit of al-ikhlas is that sincerity is a practical step to cleanse our hearts. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Thalathun la yaghillu alayhinna qalbu imri'in muslimin." There are three things that prevent the diseases of the hearts from hatred and animosity and jealousy entering into the heart. There are three things. The first thing he mentioned was ikhlasul amali lillah, worshipping Allah sincerely. So the point here is worshipping Allah sincerely is a practical way for us to be protected from the many different diseases of the hearts. The fourth fruit is that sincerity is a means to have our sins forgiven. Where do we understand this from? Which hadith is it that somebody was forgiven out of sincerity? The two hadith I mentioned previously. One was about the woman that had fallen into prostitution and she saved the life of the dog. And the second one was what? The scrolls, the 99 scrolls. I mentioned that Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, when explaining these, he said they were rewarded with such an immense reward because of the level of sincerity that they had. The fifth fruit and blessing in this dunya that we have when we work sincerely for Allah's sake. My brothers at the back, come forward please. Come join the circle. The fifth fruit of sincerity in this dunya is that we can attain and get rewards for ibadat that we did not even do. You can be rewarded, showing the immense reward and blessings and mercy of Allah. We can be rewarded for those things which we did not even do. We learn this from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Sunan of Imam Tirmidhi, where he says that the Prophet ﷺ said, there are two men. One is given knowledge and one is given wealth, and he spends in the way of Allah. And the second person has knowledge and he has no wealth, and he has a true intention. He's not just saying it, he has a true intention that if I had wealth and the means to give, I would give. The Prophet ﷺ said about these two, Huma fil ajri sawa. In reward they are equal. Even though that man did not give a penny in charity and the other one gave loads, because of his true intention, of his sincerity, he gets that complete reward. He gets that complete reward. Showing you the immense rewards and blessings of Allah. This also includes the person, for an example, last year somebody was fasting, but then something happened and Allah protect us all, he has some illness and he cannot fast. He gets the reward of fasting every single one of those days. Or somebody, he prays his salah and he breaks his leg, Allah protect us all, and he sits down and prays. His reward is for the complete salah, because he has a valid excuse preventing him from doing that ibadah, and when that excuse was not there, he was worshipping Allah properly. Showing you the immense blessings and mercy of Allah. The sixth fruit that I bring to your attention is that when we worship Allah sincerely, Allah distances us from evil and sins. Allah distances us from evil and sins. And we learn this from the story of Yousaf alayhi salam, where Allah mentions after the wife of his slave master, she does everything she can to seduce him. And Yousaf alayhi salam, he turns away. What makes him turn away? The only thing that prevented him from not falling for her seduction was what? Was his relationship with Allah and his taqwa and his ikhlas, his sincerity. Because there was nothing in the dunya that was preventing him, but it was his sincerity. And this is why after that, the next verse Allah says, إِنَّ كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. And this is how we saved him from falling into these different types of fitna, because he was from our chosen slaves. What was he chosen with? He was chosen with al-ikhlas. He was chosen with sincerity. Let's move on to the next topic. What time does the adhan happen? Another 5 minutes? Okay, we're going to have to finish this next week because we've got a lot to get done. We've reached what? Point number 5. We'll stop here and we'll do question and answers for 5 minutes, and then we'll stop in the adhan. I ask Allah that He accepts the good that we do and He forgives us for any shortcomings, and I hope that which I've said here has been of benefit for us all, and that He forgives us for any shortcomings and He makes us all from the sincere. Surely He is most merciful, most kind. If you brothers have any questions for the next 5 minutes, we can take some questions and then we can stop for the adhan, inshallah. Before we leave, don't forget what I said about the act of worship that you're going to introduce into your lives from today, that which nobody knows about and is between you and Allah. Are there any questions? Dave, then I have some questions. Number 1 is, what is sincerity? My brother's sitting at the back on the sofa. Yes, you. What is sincerity? Were you here from the beginning? Okay, he wasn't here from the beginning. You young brothers, were you here from the beginning? Okay. My brother here. Sorry, what's your name? Ahmed. What is sincerity, brother Ahmed? Doing deeds for the sake of Allah. Okay. We said that it was actively working to strengthen your relationship with Allah, by doing that which Allah loves and is pleased with, sincerely, exclusively for Him. The brother with the white shirt, what's your name? Hamza, how old are you? 12. And is that your younger brother with you? Older brother, how old are you? 15. He looks older than you. Oh, so. خير, we stop here then. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.